Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you try, it's never enough? Like, you spend hours working on something, but when you finally look at it, you only see the mistakes, the little flaws, the things that could have been better. I remember one evening I was sitting at my desk with my laptop open. The room was quiet except for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. I'd been working on a project for hours. I kept editing, deleting, rewriting. I wanted every single word to be perfect. But the more I looked at it, the more dissatisfied I felt. It was as if perfection was always 2 steps ahead of me, always out of reach. And the strange thing is, the project wasn't even bad. In fact, someone else might have thought it was already good. But inside my mind, there was this voice whispering, "Not good enough, not yet, fix this, improve that." If you've ever felt this way, then you probably know the exhaustion that comes with perfectionism. It's not just about wanting to do your best. It's about being trapped in a cycle where your best never feels good enough. And this doesn't only happen in big things like work or school. It also shows up in small things. For example, even when you were practicing English, you used to get stuck on one sentence. You'd repeat it again and again, trying to make it sound exactly like a native speaker. Instead of feeling proud that you were learning, you felt frustrated because you weren't perfect yet. That's what perfectionism does. It steals the joy from the process. It makes us forget how far we've come because we're too focused on the tiny gap between good and perfect. So in this part of the podcast, I want to take you with me into that moment, sitting at my desk, exhausted, staring at a blinking cursor. Because maybe you've been there too. Maybe you know what it feels like to chase a version of perfect that never seems to exist. And if you do, then you're not alone. Have you ever noticed how perfectionism often hides itself as something good? At first glance, it looks like motivation. It looks like discipline. It looks like ambition. We tell ourselves, "I just want to do my best. I just want this to be perfect." And it sounds noble, right? But here's the trap. Perfectionism doesn't push us forward. More often, it holds us back. Let me share a story. A friend of mine once dreamed of starting her own blog. She loved writing, had so many ideas, and even bought a domain name. She spent weeks planning the design, choosing the fonts, adjusting the colors. But she never actually published her first article. Why? Because every time she wrote something, she felt it wasn't good enough. She kept editing, deleting, rewriting, and eventually, she gave up. That's the thing with perfectionism. It doesn't just slow us down. Sometimes it completely paralyzes us. And it's sneaky too. It whispers, "You're not ready yet. Just fix this one more thing. Just wait a little longer." But that little longer turns into days, then weeks, then months, until one day we realize nothing ever got done. If you've ever felt that weight, you know how exhausting it is. Perfectionism promises freedom, but delivers pressure. It promises success, but gives us endless delay. It promises confidence, but leaves us full of doubt. And maybe the hardest part is, society often praises perfectionists. Teachers call them hardworking. Bosses see them as reliable. Friends admire their attention to detail. But behind that shiny surface, there's often anxiety, fear of failure, and an endless cycle of never enough. Perfectionism doesn't always walk into our lives wearing a big sign that says, "Hey, I'm perfectionism, and I'm here to make you miserable." No, it's much sneakier than that. It slips into our daily routines, our thoughts, even our ambitions, disguised as something positive. And that's what makes it so dangerous. For some people, perfectionism looks like endless preparation. Imagine this. You tell yourself you're going to start exercising, so you spend hours watching YouTube videos about the perfect workout plan. You research shoes, compare water bottles, even scroll through reviews for yoga mats. Days pass, and you're still planning, still getting ready. And deep down, you convince yourself you're being productive, when in reality, you haven't even taken the first step. For others, perfectionism hides behind the mask of high standards. Maybe you're working on a school assignment, a project, or even a creative hobby like drawing. You set the bar so high that nothing ever feels good enough. You finish a page, erase it, start again. You tweak a sentence over and over, afraid to hit submit. From the outside, it looks like you're committed to excellence, but inside, you're stuck in a loop of never-ending edits. Then there's the disguise of procrastination. This one is tricky because procrastination doesn't always come from laziness. It often comes from fear. Fear that if you start, you might fail. Fear that if you finish, your work will be judged. So you avoid starting altogether. You tell yourself, "I'll do it later when I'm more ready." Or, "I need more time to prepare." But what's really happening is perfectionism whispering in your ear, keeping you from moving forward. And here's the most subtle disguise of all, the idea of control. Perfectionism makes you believe that if you plan enough, polish enough, prepare enough, you can avoid mistakes, avoid judgment, avoid failure. It tricks you into thinking you're protecting yourself. But in reality, you're just trapping yourself in a cycle where nothing ever feels finished, and progress is constantly delayed. What's so heartbreaking is that perfectionism often hides behind compliments. People might say, "Wow, you're so detail-oriented," or "You really care about doing things right." And while those traits can be positive, they can also be chains if taken too far. It's easy to mistake perfectionism for dedication, when in fact it's fear in disguise. By now, maybe you can see how perfectionism is like a shapeshifter. Sometimes it looks like high standards, sometimes like procrastination, sometimes like endless preparation. But in every form, it steals the same thing from us: progress. When we think about procrastination, it's easy to see it only as a delay, like pushing back homework, skipping the gym, or waiting until the last minute to send that application. But the real cost isn't just about the tasks we postpone, it's about the opportunities we never step into. Think about it this way. Life is full of doors. Some are wide open, inviting us to walk through. Others stay open only for a short while before quietly closing. Every time we procrastinate, we're not just standing still. We're standing in front of a door, hesitating, and in that hesitation, chances slip away. Opportunities are fragile. They don't always knock twice. Maybe it's applying for a scholarship, speaking up in class, saying yes to a project, or even just starting a small creative habit. Each of these moments is a door. The more we hesitate, the more doors close silently behind us, until one day we look back and realize how many chances we left untouched. And here's the deeper impact. Growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. It happens when we try, when we stretch ourselves, when we risk failing. But procrastination keeps us in that safe bubble. It whispers, "You'll do it later. No need to take that risk now." And so we stay still. We avoid the discomfort, but we also avoid the growth. Maybe you felt it too. That quiet sting of regret when you see someone else taking the opportunity you once had in your hands. Not because they were smarter or more talented, but simply because they acted while you waited. This isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. When we procrastinate, we're not just moving slowly, we're actively letting go of moments that could have changed us. And the scary part is, sometimes we don't even notice until much later. So the question is, how many doors are you willing to let close before you take that first step? Breaking free from the trap of perfectionism doesn't mean lowering your standards or giving up on quality. It's about shifting the way we see progress. For too long, we've been trained to believe that only flawless outcomes deserve recognition, when in reality, growth is built on repetition, adjustment, and imperfection. The first shift we can make is learning to value consistency over perfection. Even the smallest step forward has meaning if it's taken today, instead of postponed for an imaginary, perfect tomorrow. Writing a single paragraph, solving just one problem, or showing up for a short practice session. All of these carry more weight than waiting until the conditions are flawless. We also need to start celebrating small wins. Perfectionism blinds us to progress because it makes us think it's not enough. But every little milestone reached is proof of movement, and acknowledging them helps us stay motivated instead of stuck. Another healthy habit is to break big deadlines into smaller, manageable checkpoints. Instead of staring at one massive project that feels overwhelming, we divide it into simple tasks that can be completed step by step. That way, momentum replaces paralysis. And most importantly, we need to practice self-compassion. Mistakes will happen. Delays will happen. Imperfections are part of the process, not signs of failure. By treating ourselves with patience, we make it easier to keep going instead of giving up. Shifting perspective doesn't erase challenges overnight, but it gives us a healthier way to face them without the weight of unrealistic expectations holding us back. Perfectionism tells us to wait. Progress invites us to begin. We've seen how that quiet push for flawless turns into hesitation, pressure, and missed chances. But there is another path, softer, kinder, and far more powerful. Choose movement over mastery. Let small actions lead you forward. Let good enough for today be the bridge that carries you to better tomorrow. Progress is not a straight line. It's a gentle rhythm. Try, learn, adjust, continue. Some days will feel light. Some days will feel heavy. Both are part of the journey. Give yourself permission to be a work in progress, because that's what growth looks like. Celebrate tiny wins. Honor the effort. Release the need to prove. Trust that consistency builds confidence, and confidence builds momentum. You don't have to earn your right to start. You start, and that is the earning. You show up, and that is the courage. You continue, and that is the victory. So today, let perfect be quiet. Let presence be louder. Take the next small step. Breathe. Begin again. Progress is already happening inside your willingness to move.